Welcome in to SPBL Live. I'm your host, Carson Piasek. With me is Garrett Brooks, Hall of Famer in the SPBL, along with his brother, Jacob Brooks, who made an appearance in the 2024 season, filling in for Garrett, as well as Titan Henley. We are here for the Week 1 SPBL Live podcast, going over the reactions to Week 1. In Week 1, we had two great games that both came down to the wire, the first of which was the Ball Hogs versus the Gunslingers, with the Gunslingers having a come-from-behind victory in the Elam ending period, defeating the reigning champion Ball Hogs. And then in our second game, we had the Mean Machine versus the Blues, with the Blues coming out on top of that one. Both games had some ups and downs. Both teams saw some players that were maybe knocking off some rust early on, but kind of caught their form as the game went on. First, I want to touch on the Ball Hogs coming off of a championship season, of course, led by Garrett Brooks in that one. We've heard a lot about Garrett's opinion on the Ball Hogs. He was obviously commentating the game as well. But Jacob, from your perspective, you got to play one game with the Ball Hogs, and now you see how they looked with Wilson Parker at the helm instead of one of the Brooks brothers. What was your take on the new look Ball Hogs, and what can they improve on moving forward?
First, it was definitely the pace of play was pathetic compared to last year. Even with me, I tried to slow it down, and from Garrett's thing, and it was still significantly faster. Because it doesn't really fit for their play style. I think you got to use Zach well, and I don't think he was as utilized as he should have been. And even though I think Wilson didn't know how to run it well enough, he kept trying to take it over the whole game and instead of actually using Luke and Josh. But it's kind of hard to throw yourself into a team who'd been running the table the whole year, who've been doing fast breaks to just snap the fingers and then change everything. So that really, I think, affected them. And the three-pointers, this is not a three-point shooting team. They're not. I mean, I think we made 3 of 20. That's just not what we do there. So that's my take from it. I think they need to go back to their inside ball because that's what they got used to. They're not used to spreading it as much.
Yeah, they were 3 for 20, as you mentioned, out from deep. Wilson himself was 2 for 10, which is a solid performance relative to the league's average. But the other 3 Ball Hogs, but really just between Josh and Luke, as Zach didn't shoot a 3. Josh and Luke combined for 1 for 10. And to your point, that is well above their average from last season in terms of number of three-pointers taken. And it did not pay off for them as well. And speaking of Josh and Luke, maybe a bit underwhelming in terms of their performance in Week 1. Garrett, you played with them quite a bit. Knowing how they have played in the past and you getting to see firsthand some of their best games in the league, what advice would you give them in order to improve from where they are right now in Week 1?
Well, it's tough because I think they combined like 4 for 27 together. So I would say just a lot of their shots weren't as good looks as they're used to getting from last year, and I think that was a big problem. So they did switch up the game, and my problem is towards the end when they struggled and lost the lead, they just went away from everything that was working during the game against the Gunslingers. They just went away from everything. So, and every shot was contested, and they just need to try and get a mismatch or try and get a pick and roll or do something to get an open look, because I would say 90% of their shots were contested and they weren't good looks. So they just need to find an open shot. And I know Josh will start knocking them down, but he just got to get open.
Yeah, and not to discredit their overall performance, as Luke did come away with 16 rebounds in the game, and he somehow wasn't even the highest rebounder on the team, as Zach had 17. Some good hustle and effort shown by the Ball Hogs. True championship team, but on the offensive end, the shooting was not there, and so they're definitely going to have to find a way to get the offense more up to speed moving forward. On the other side of things, with the Gunslingers, who came away with the 40-37 victory, snatching victory in the Elam ending period. We saw a bit of a struggle early on between Sam and Bo, who didn't seem to be on the same page right away, but kind of caught their footing late. Titan, what do you think about the duo of Sam and Bo now that we've seen them out on the court once? I know you had some opinions on them coming into the league and their ceiling for the team.
Well, yeah, I can't lie, the first part of the game, I was kind of worried how that fit was going to work out. They both looked a little rusty. The offense wasn't quite running the way that it needed to be. But I do think by the end of the game, they started settling in their groove. When they realized they really needed to pick it up, that's when their game started to shine. And I think that's just rust. I think that's just going to be a little like kink in the chain that they needed to get out before they really have to like start to get going. I know the quality of players that they are. I have some sources that have played with Bo before that game that really liked what they saw from him. So I think that was probably the floor of what we're going to see from Bo this season. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's the floor we see from Sam anyways. At the end of the day, they still combined for 35, just like our media member Garrett said that they would. And I think this team still has like a really bright future. Even with all their struggles, even with looking as bad as they did, they still ended up pulling out a victory against the reigning champions. So I think you're happy with the win if you're the Gunslingers and you're looking forward to being better next week.
That's to your point. Garrett did predict that they would score about 35 a game, and right away in the first game, we had Bo with 19 points and Sam with 16. Not the most efficient nights for themselves. Sam was 2 for 9 from 3, a bit below his average, and Bo was just 3 for 17. He kind of caught heat a little bit in the second half, but overall was probably a bit disappointing for both of them in terms of their efficiency on the night. But like Titan mentioned, still came away with a win, so you have to be happy with that one if you are the Gunslingers. Looking at the other two members of the Gunslingers, Joe and Dave, a bit underwhelming performances from them, just 2 and 3 points respectively. Dave, of course, did have 11 rebounds, but is there anything that they can provide value-wise to this team, Garrett? Looking at Joe and Dave, do you think there's ever going to be a need for them to kind of step up and hit shots? They each only attempted 5 or 6 shots in this one, or do you think that the team can survive with their low volume?
I really don't think the team can survive with just those two guys. I think Dave and Joe are gonna have to do something. I thought Dave played well. He took a couple little odd shots, but the rest of them were good looks. He was just hard off the glass, a little too strong. I thought Dave played good, and he just needs to play better, especially if it gives Bo and Sam room to not play well. And to win, that's what you're going to have to do. To beat the Flamethrowers, you're going to have to hit from all cylinders because that team's strong. So I think, and then Joe has a good shot. So I think Joe and Dave, they need to step it up. They need to play a little better.
Yeah, and like I said, it's nice for the Gunslingers to still come away with a win despite the what seems like poor performances all around for the team, but they got in it late and were able to come away with a victory. Now, Jacob, in your one game last year, you played against the Blackfriars, which of course had both Sam and Joe, and you gave Sam some trouble on the offensive end. You held him to one of his worst games of the season. What was your strategy when guarding Sam, and what can other players look to do when they're defending him?
Yeah, thank you for shouting me out, but I think I held him to 9. But the thing with him is he wants to shoot the ball, and statistically, he's gonna give it to him. But with a hand in his face, he made a couple, but he's actually killer on the drives. And that's where he's hit some crazy ones. Even last game, I think he hit 2 off the glass where he was completely sideways. So I think the big thing is kind of just keep a hand out and stop him from driving. He doesn't do very well with a little face guard. And that's what did cost us the game last time because I got tired guarding him because he's a hard person to guard. But I think the biggest thing is to keep him stable is to not really let him get a rhythm shooting. So keep perimeter defense out there, but also you really have to get help on the drives because he will kill you. And he showed that. And I really wish that he would use a little bit more screens because they can really destroy you driving the ball into the lane. But yeah, I would say keep a hand in his face, and that's really the biggest thing because it really gets him off this groove.
Definitely. We saw Wilson helping out on the drives a little bit, but it wasn't quite enough. As you noted, Sam had a couple of really good shots inside. And in terms of the screens, you'd hope that they get a bit more pick and roll action. Bo mentioned that before the season, they wanted to run a lot of pick and rolls with those two. Didn't see it much in week one. We'll see if that is something that will come down the pipe in future games. But moving over to our second game of the night, the Blues versus the Mean Machine. The Blues come away with a 48-45 victory. And a big theme throughout the game was the ups and downs for both teams. On the Blues side, Neal was struggling quite a bit early on, but still was not afraid of shooting. Ended up with 37 attempts in the game, the most attempts by anybody in week one. And while he was struggling early on, he did heat up a little bit down the stretch and hit 2 big threes during Elam ending time to give, including the game winner, to give the Blues the win. Titan, if you're on Neal's team and you see Neal starting out as rough as he did, I believe he started out 6 for his first 26 shots. Are you looking to continue to give him the ball, knowing that spark is in him, or are you looking elsewhere, knowing that you have the talents of Drew, Nate, and Allen elsewhere on the offensive end?
Well, let me ask you this, Carson. What ended up happening in the game? Because what I think ended up happening was Neal was that spark. When the game time came, guess what happened? He hit the threes that he needed to win the game. So at the end of the day, look, it wasn't pretty. Like, I get that. But when you look down at it, Neal got the job done. He took a lot of shots to get the job done, but they came out with the dub, and he hit the shots in clutch time. If you have to lose a quarter to him just chucking up the ball, then so be it, as long as it gets you dubs. I think it's a fine formula as long as it gets you the win. And I think with this team, with the floor that Drew brings, I think that this team can afford to allow Neal to beat Neal. You'll get the highs. Even though you got the lows, you can overcome the lows. And I think this team is going to be a lot more dangerous. They by far look like the most cohesive team out there in week one. And I think this is going to be a super fun, super dangerous team, especially if you get an on night from Neal.
Now, there are two sides to that coin, of course. You mentioned in that game, Neal did catch fire and helped lead them to a victory. On the other hand, they were initially doing well when Drew was getting more of the offensive volume, and Nate was kind of sprinkled in there as well. And then kind of in the third quarter and the second half as a whole, Drew faded a bit in terms of his offensive output, not because he was missing shots or anything. He just wasn't really taking many, as most of those shots were being taken by Neal. Garrett, in your opinion, should Drew be stepping up more and commanding more of the shot share for the Blues? Because when we saw him shooting, he was very efficient.
Yeah, I think Drew should definitely be shooting more. I mean, as a Boston Celtic fan, I see Jason Tatum go 1 for 19 from time to time, and boy, do I wish he would just pass the ball to Derek White, right? So I can compare that to them too. So I would want if Tatum's going bad, like Neal was. I think he was just having an off night for the first 3 quarters. Pass the rock off. Drew had a great start. Everything was perfect in the Blues world, and honestly, it wouldn't have been less stressful if Drew was the one at the helm. So I do think Drew should take more of an initiative and taking the ball away from Neal. And I think they're going to find a lot of success if they do that. Sorry, Titan, but I think it's going to go. I think it needs to go that way.
Now, it is nice for the Blues to have options offensively. You have Drew, who is very efficient. and he's very smart offensively. You have Neal, who's a bit of a spark, and then you also have Nate Bryers, who he's definitely very confident in his own abilities, and he showed that he has the potential to be a strong offensive player in years past. In the first game, he was just 4 for 15 from the floor, 1 for 6 from 3. Jacob, if you were a coach of this team, would you be looking to have Nate more integrated offensively, knowing that he has that size down low and he can get some easy shots in the post? Or are you looking at him more of that third option on this team?
I'd put him down post, 100%, especially with the size matchup. I mean, if you got Neal shooting, what was it, 27 threes or something like that? I mean, I'm just gonna put Nate down there at that point, because a lot of them, I hate to say it, a lot of the shots look like passes down low. They were very soft. I mean, he did make some, but a lot of them came off soft. So yeah, I would just keep Nate in the post at all times. I mean, he did come out and shoot a couple threes, which he has in his game. But I'd just throw him down low at this point.
Nate in that game with 9 points and 13 rebounds. He was tied for the team lead in rebounds with Allen, who also had 13. Both of them doing work on the glass. Should also note Allen led the league in week 1 with 7 assists in the game. Not really a noticeable 7 assists, as we didn't really notice it while we were commentating the game, but afterwards we did learn that he had 7 assists in that one. So some smart play offensively by Allen, who is not someone who will provide you with great output, but providing value and limiting mistakes. No turnovers from Allen is definitely a positive for the Blues to have as a 4th player on the team. On the other end of things, we had the Mean Machine, who had a very highly anticipated newcomer in Jack Flynn. And I think the media consensus is that we were a bit disappointed in Jack's first game. And it really seemed like the duo of Travis and Hunter, who have been together for 4 years now, were really the ones that were providing the energy needed for this team, while Jack seemed to struggle from the floor. Titan, what do you think about the duo of Travis and Hunter coming into this season? They have not had much success in the SPBL in the past, but they look like they're both very improved and ready to go this year.
No, this is awesome. This is exactly the kind of thing that this league needs. Talking with my fellow media members about week 1, everybody is super, super excited for this Travis season. He gave one of the most fire quotes that I've heard in SPBL history. Everyone was talking about MIP for him, but he's going for MVP. I love that energy. I keep wanting to see that. And y'all know I'm on the record with being a Hunter hater for this season, and he's trying to prove me wrong, and I love it. And I think if those two can keep the same pace, not even improve that pace, but just keep up this pace, I think Jack is gonna knock more of that rust off and become more of the player that we think later on. And then this team may not be as poor as we initially thought, because even though Jack was taking some wild deep shots, you can tell through his form and everything that he's used to hitting those. And I think if those start falling for him, I think this team may actually be able to cause up a little stir, a little something. But I'm so looking forward to Travis and Hunter this season and keeping up with them.
Yeah, it was a great performance from both of them. Hunter with 15 points and 21 rebounds, and then Travis also with 14 points. Travis shooting 50% both inside the arc and from 3. Some great performances from the Mean Machine in the loss. And now, Garrett, we talked a lot about concerns of spacing with this team, under the assumption that Rob is not really a threat from deep. Hunter has never been a threat from deep in his time in the SPBL, and Travis, he's been on and off, hit and miss from 3. So we thought that they were going to have to rely on Jack a lot for the scoring output. But in the end, Jack only had 16 points in this one, which is well below expectations for him. But they were still almost able to come away with the win, put up 45 points in this one. Do you think that Travis and Hunter can be relied upon moving forward as integral parts of the offense, or do you think that this was kind of a one-off and we'll have to revert back to Jack taking the full lead here offensively?
Yeah, just to come off what Titan said, if they do shoot that well again, they can cause problems. It doesn't mean they will. I just don't think that Travis and Hunter will keep it up. I know the no spacing allegations were thrown out with Hunter shooting threes and Travis making threes. I just don't think they can keep up with it. It's just stats are stats for a reason, and for the last couple of years, they went a lot over it, and I just don't see them staying that high above the stats. I think it's going to go back down.
Yeah, regression to the mean would suggest that this was maybe a one-off performance, but time will tell if the work that they put in the offseason is truly paying off this season. And if it does, and Jack can return to the level that the media expects out of him this season, this team could end up being dangerous. But from an overall schematic approach, Jacob, what do you think that the Mean Machine could do better moving forward schematically, either offensively or defensively?
I think defensively they did their best because the Blues, that was the best team play we've seen week one. I mean, that was out the gates. That was the best team performance we've seen. But offensively, I mean, limit Jack's threes from 15 feet off the three-point line. I mean, they kind of needed to roll a little bit of offense because you got guys coming on defense and they're already tired, and then you're jacking up a three before your guy even walks into the paint. I would say limit those because you got two guys offensively, Hunter, who shot 50% from three, and Travis, which, had a great game. They both shot 50%, and your number one guy shot 11% from three on 19 shots. So I would say limit the longer threes because Jack can make them. He's got great form. Great ball player. I think he thought he'd come in and destroy everybody. And I mean, it's not like we disagreed with him. But I think he came in thinking he would knock down all the shots. And obviously we saw that there is a lot of rust. Offensively, though, I would say use Travis more. I mean, he shot 50% from the field. I mean, that's insane. And he didn't seem to have the ball in his hands a lot. So I would try to let Jack kind of distribute more and let the offense get out of the palm of his hand for a little bit. And I think we'll see a lot better play from the Mean Machines if that happens.
Definitely. And Jack, obviously a very high IQ player, definitely has good passing ability and should have a good strategy for this team moving forward. Definitely some positives to take away from this one. Now, before we move on to the MVP meter, Garrett, there's been a lot of talk in the league about the physicality of the league and I guess the lack of foul calls overall. And as someone who has played in the league for 3 years, has done an extensive job reffing in the league, what is your opinion on the overall physicality that's allowed in the league, and your opinion on the reffing in the league?
I just think guys need to remember these refs aren't getting paid. Like, we're not getting paid to do it, so we're gonna miss calls. It's not like we have favoritism, but we're gonna miss calls. And yeah, I as a guy who went to the paint, 90% of my shots are in the paint. Yeah, I got fouled, and you can go back in the tape. I can count on my hands how many times I actually got mad. I recall not getting but there's certain people, the commissioner, but that get really mad. So, but don't let it deter the refs, because if you yell at the refs, they're going to start giving you some calls. So I think just suck it up. You're going to get contact on your arm. You're going to get contact on your elbow. It's fine now. If it's a big foul, they're going to call it, but it's just people need to stop kind of getting mad about it. It's just going to be physical. It's basketball.
Yeah, it is basketball. We don't have professional referees, obviously, and not everything is going to get caught. But at the same time, the league is known to be somewhat physical. You have been someone, as you mentioned, who's gotten probably fouled more than called in the past. Same with Chris Kina, probably the two best players in SPBL history. Have definitely had their fair share of uncalled fouls, but to your point, you got to move on and accept what is getting called and do your best to adapt and adjust as needed. But moving on to our next segment, we have the SPBL MVP meter, where we have the top 5 MVP candidates at this point in the season. Just off the meter was Travis Wilson. Travis, of course, with his stellar performance in that one, highly efficient, and almost had the Mean Machine coming away with a victory in week 1. Unfortunately, unable to do so. And while Titan mentioned his quote, not going for MIP, but going for MVP, he finds himself just off the ladder in this one. So at the bottom of the MVP meter, we have Drew Bushman, who that's a bit of a typo there. He had 13 points, not 24. I believe that is actually Neil's stat line that might have gotten put up there. Drew had 13 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, and 3 steals in this one. He did, and so it was a very impressive performance from Drew. He really led the team on the offensive end in the first half, as we mentioned. Faded a bit in the second half, but he was definitely the engine that propelled them to victory overall. Guarding Jack on the defensive end, which is definitely a tough task for someone as talented as Jack. Drew finds himself at 5th on the MVP meter. Moving on to 4th in the MVP meter, we have Bo Hightower, who had 19 points, 14 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, and 2 blocks. Definitely an inefficient outing for Bo, but he did end up with some strong point and rebound totals on the night, and they came away with the win. He heated up late in the game, which finds himself 4th on the MVP ladder, albeit what might be one of the more disappointing performances from him this season. 3rd on the MVP meter is Sam Satterwhite, who had 16 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, and was fairly efficient overall in the first game for the Gunslingers. He really turned it on late and helped lead the team to a come-from-behind victory over the defending champion Ball Hogs. Sam, with, as expected, an MVP-level performance for a player that finished 3rd in MVP voting in his first season in 2024. Moving to 2nd on the MVP meter, we have Wilson Parker, who had 24 points and 9 rebounds in the first game. While he wasn't overly dominant statistically, he was definitely made his presence known on the court. His height was something that was very difficult to deal with for the Gunslingers. Unfortunately, in the end, was unable to bring home the victory for the Ball Hogs, but a strong performance in his inaugural SPBL game. And then at the top of the MVP meter is Chris Kina. And while he did not play at all in the first game, up there we have Chris's averages from the 2024 SPBL season, averaging 30 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals on the most efficient shooting in the league. We definitely expect him to come out this season as well with a fire under his belt, as last year was the first season that he did not win SPBL MVP. And while he did not play in week 1, we can surely anticipate a strong performance from him in week 2 when they make their debut for 2025. And that is the SPBL MVP meter for week 1. Chris at the top, followed by Wilson, then Sam, Bo, and Drew. Titan, what is your take on Chris being at the top of the MVP meter despite not playing in week 1?
I mean, this makes complete sense to me. All of the big heavy hitters that we had in our mind going into the leagues had a pretty poor performance respective to what we expected out of them. I think that just naturally puts Chris as the clear front runner for MVP. He's an absolute dog. He's been working hard this offseason. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a little bit better stats than he had last year, and I think he's becoming for blood this season. So him at number 1, I'm completely on board with.
Now, Garrett, for all the players that are not on the board, there were some very strong performances. As I mentioned, Travis was the first one off. We also had Jack, Hunter, and Neil with solid performances, ups and downs for all of them. Is there any of them or anyone else who's not on the list that you think should be in the top 5 right now for MVP?
Well, it's hard to put Travis there with 10 shots. He shot so well, but you just can't put him in the MVP thing. And Jack, you can't. It's hard for me to not replace Bo with someone in the top 5 because I just think he didn't play enough to be in the top 5. I thought his performance was not that good. So I think I would probably switch Bo out with maybe Neil or Jack. But I think there's the only guy. This is kind of tough to go away from this 5 here.
Now, if you're looking for an MVP right now for the Mean Machine, only been 1 game, but who would you say is their MVP right now?
Well, there's a difference between MVP and whoever played the best. The MVP is going to be Jack for sure, but he didn't play the best. So, but yeah, it's Jack for sure.
Now, Jacob, we have Wilson in 2nd, Sam in 3rd, and Bo in 4th. Do you agree with this order? You know, we mentioned Wilson having a strong presence on the floor, but did not elevate his team to a victory and kind of faded away late. Do you think he should be in 2nd, or would you reorganize this?
I would definitely reorganize it. I would put Sam at 2 for sure. The way he distributes the ball, he's more value, I would say. And Wilson, as though he did score 24, we'll give him credit for that. That was a hell of a game. I mean, he got out rebounded by 2 other players on his team, who's not as tall. 0 assists. Shot 20% from 3. So, I don't think the value is there for most valuable. I think he's still their best player for sure. So I would kind of bump him down and put Sam. I would also take Bo off the list. I don't think there's a top 5 right now. I would say top 4. I think you can't really be on the list if you shoot 3 for 17, and still continue to shoot. So I would take him off the list. Although I do think he can reach the potential of being there. I think his shot selection needs to be a little bit better. Because he can be the MVP of the league. But yeah, I would definitely go Chris at 1 just because. I mean, potential-wise, we haven't seen him, but we know what he brings to the table. And I would do, Chris, Sam, Wilson, Drew for my top 4.
Yeah, only 4. And so that is the Week 1 SPBL MVP meter. We look forward to seeing how they each perform in Week 2, who rises and who falls in the Week 2 SPBL MVP meter. Moving on to our last segment, we have our headlines for the week, and we're going to say whether they are over the top or on the dot for the headlines. Garrett is going to feed us some headlines, and we will react to them.
All right, guys, are y'all ready for over the top or on the dot?
Oh, yeah.
Yep,
All right.
Bring it on.
So my first headliner is the most improved player award is Travis's Toulouse. Is that over the top or on the dot?
I'll go ahead and say that is on the dot. I think Travis came in as the favorite for the MVP award, or for the MIP award, excuse me. And he was the most improved player in Week 1, in my opinion. The only concern that I would have for him is that the volume is going to limit him likely, with Jack being the main driver of the offense and Hunter going to be taking his shots as well. But if he remains efficient throughout the season, I'm obviously not expecting him to shoot 50% every game. If he remains efficient overall, I think that it is definitely his to lose at this point.
I have a question.
All right.
Is Drew eligible for the MIP award?
I believe he is, according to our league commissioner. Let me give that a look really quick, but I believe he is accurate. I'll let you know in a little bit.
Because I'm not gonna lie. I think that's the point. Like, I do think it is Travis's to lose, but I think if he would lose it to somebody, I could easily see a case scenario where Drew is playing at a near MVP level, and as a recognition for that, he gets MIP over Travis due to Travis's lack of volume. I think MIP could easily be in play for Drew because I think he is very deserving of the MIP as well.
Fair.
Yeah. I think that it's definitely Travis's to lose. That's on the dot for sure. I do think the volume is concerned, as we've been saying. But yeah, Drew, I would say, as Titan said, would be the second option because he also had limited volume, but could have done more and still. And he's on our MVP list, so that does show a little bit of scare for Travis.
And to follow up on that, Drew is eligible for the most improved player. He obviously used to be a full-time member. He was not in the league in 2024, but he is eligible for most improved.
All right, guys, I just got to butt in real quick. This is my time to leave. I enjoyed being on the podcast. Y'all can't wait to hear the rest of y'all's takes on it.
All right. Thank you for joining us, Titan.
Thank you, sir.
See you.
We'll continue on with Over the Top or On the Dot with me, Garrett, and Jacob.
For sure. We'll start with Carson and Jacob every single time. So,
Sounds
all right.
good.
Is this over the top or on the dot? With Hunter's new and improved three-point shot, he will be a top 4 player in the SPBL.
I got to say that I think that is over the top. I do think that the three-point shot for Hunter is extremely valuable to him. Obviously, in week 1, he went 2 for 4 from 3, so not a lot of volume, but he doesn't really need a lot of volume to be valuable. Just having the threat of him being able to shoot opens up the floor a lot for that team. The previous thought was that Jacob was going to be the only big threat from range, and it was going to be easy for the rest of the team to kind of sag off and help on him. But if Hunter as well as Travis can hit threes, that is extremely valuable for the team. However, even if Hunter is able to shoot a respectable percentage and efficiency from 3, I don't think that it quite vaults him into the top 4. Just knowing that at this stage, even if he is a league average 3-point shooter, he still finds himself behind the likes of Chris, Wilson, and Sam, in my opinion. And while that 4th spot could be up for grabs, I think we need to see a bit more from guys like Bo and Jack and Drew as well to see who really will take that 4th spot as the season goes on. But I don't think it's necessarily going to be Hunter at this point.
I don't think it's too far off. We haven't seen this from Hunter before. We saw a couple drives that went a little insane. His rebounding is amazing. So that would really propel him. And the way that he gets the Ben Simmons treatment and now he's able to change it, possibly, would be a huge boost to him then, because that would also help him driving. So I think if he keeps up the 50%, which is insane. Again, we're looking at lack of volume here with Jack taking 3. So this is kind of in the air for that. I would say yes, it's not too far off. He can make that top 5 easily if he continues and also use the perimeter defense to drive. If he gets a pump fake, who knows? He could be top 3. So
That's fair. I agree. I think he can be top 4 possibly if he keeps the volume up. But yeah, we'll see. All right, for the next one, is it over the top or on the dot that if Drew had the same amount of shots as Neil did, he would be a top 2 MVP voter?
if Drew had the same amount of attempts as Neil, I think that is over the top in the sense that Drew is a very smart player, and Drew will look for the best shot in the offense each time down the floor. And for Drew to be putting up as many shots as Neil, he is simply going to be putting up shots that are, in his mind, not the best for the team. And I think his efficiency would probably go down a bit as he's taking some contested shots that he normally would not take. And I don't think that we would view Drew in the same light that we do now as kind of the efficient floor raiser for that team. I think we would see him more, ironically enough, more like Neil, as someone who could provide strong value offensively through scoring, but he's not someone who's going to be providing the team with the best option down the floor. And I think that, through a different lens now, I don't think we would see him in the way that we do now. So I don't know that shooting it that many times is necessarily something that would vault him forward in MVP conversations, but I do think he could shoot more than he does right now, given his efficiency.
I say due to lack of performance of week one, I think yes, it's on the money. Carson did say everything perfectly, because if Drew will not take the shots that Neil takes, that's just not who Drew is. But a lot of the shots that Neil shot were open. He missed a lot of open ones, and I do think that Drew will be able to make those. And there was I think it was 4 or 5 open layups. That's 10 points to Drew if he was able to get there. So I do think for week one that I think it's on the money that Drew would be able to, but for the season, no. Because also Drew's just not the player to throw up a couple threes that are contested. Regardless if they go in, that's just not his play style. So
right, and I will say if we assumed that he would keep his efficiency up, if we took his first 37 shots of the season and looked at that and pretended that was his performance in week one, then certainly he would be in the top two. But just knowing, with how many shots that is and understanding that his efficiency would probably go down with that, I just don't see it quite being top two in MVP.
It's a lot of shots. It's a lot of shots he has to do.
37 is a lot of shots.
Yeah, it's a lot of shots.
In a 32 give or take minute game with the ELM ending.
Yeah, I agree. All right, for the next one, is it over the top or on the dot that the meme machine win 0 games?
I think that is over the top. I will say the Mean Machine were a team that I was lower on coming into the season, and I was very worried that with the defense's focus on Jack and the fact that they were due to have to rely somewhat on Travis and Hunter offensively to propel them, I was very skeptical of the team and their ability to win any games. But I think that what we saw from Travis and Hunter gives me enough faith that when they do have a game where Jack is hitting shots, even if Travis and Hunter are worse than they were in that one, I think that they will be able to win a game, at least one for sure. But there is a scenario, of course, where Travis and Hunter revert to where they have been in past years, and Jack never quite heats up like we expect him to. And in that scenario, if this performance in week one from Jack is what we are supposed to expect moving forward, I definitely think that 0 wins is in the realm of possibilities.
I'm going to say over the top. They lost by 3. Jack shot 5 for 30. Their best player. So you're not going to see that every night. I do think that they're going to be over here in Cancun very soon, but I don't think that they'll go winless. I think Jack can step it up. Again, Travis and Hunter bringing what they bring. I don't think will happen every night, but Jack's going to shoot better. I mean, he's a better player. He's going to get better shots. So I think they'll squeak by one, but I don't think it's a good outlook on the season.
Okay, I got three more guys, so we just want to roll through them, just letting y'all know. So my next one is it over the top or on the dot that Wilson is the worst rebounder in SPBL this season?
Wilson, so by volume, I don't think he's the worst rebounder. I think that aspect is over the top. But if we're talking about relative to height and relative to expectations, I think that Nate Bryers, who has been hated on in the past for his lack of rebounding relative to his height, I think Wilson was worse than that. So I think from that lens, I think that's on the dot.
Yeah, I mean, it's on the money. I mean, you can't get out rebounded by Zach and Luke by almost double your rebounds at 6'4". That's just not. I mean, you got to crash the boards. He didn't box out. I mean, there's more over the back calls than I've ever seen in my life. I mean, they weren't called, of course, but I mean, yeah, it's Nate out rebounded him, and so that beats that allegation. So I would say, yeah, he's going to be on the money for that one.
Yeah, I think he's going to look to improve his rebounding game in week 2 for sure. I think that's a goal of his that I can see that he has on his list. All right, so my next one is over the top or on the dot that Zach will lead the league in rebounds?
I think that is over the top. I think Zach, his effort was unmatched by anyone in week 1. I think that he was, the most aggressive player going for rebounds, and it showed. He did lead with 17. Or sorry, he actually did not lead in week 1. We did have Hunter with 21, and right now I think Hunter is the best rebounder in the league, and I think that Hunter's presence combined with the fact that on Zach's own team he has to deal with Wilson, who despite his lack of rebounding, as we just mentioned, we expect to improve from the 9 rebounds, as well as the aggressiveness from Luke on the rebounds as well. Luke had 16, so I think that's over the top. I don't think he'll lead the league, but I do think that he will have his highest finish in the league in his career.
Yeah, I think it's a little much. Hunter's obviously killing it. I mean, Wilson couldn't box out his own takeout food. So, I mean, if that keeps up, I think Zach has a chance. Because, I mean, Luke got 16, he got 17. So, I mean, if Zach prioritizes rebounding more, I think there's a real shot. If he makes that his sole purpose, I think there's a shot. But as of right now, I think it's too much over the top.
Yeah, that was more of a shout out to Zach for getting 17 rebounds. I think he has a chance to lead in offensive rebounding for sure with his hustle, which I think if he gets the most offensive rebounds, that's automatically a hustle award right there, in my opinion. But yeah, we'll see. I think if he can snag rebounds for sure, it'll really help.
I do want to say, I think I also want to shout out Rob on his rebounding performance. Didn't get to him during our rundown segment of the games, but Rob had 10 rebounds in his performance, and as someone who does not really provide much value offensively, I think that it was good to see him getting after it on the glass.
Rob had 10 rebounds?
He did have 10 rebounds.
That's more than Wilson. That's crazy. Good for Rob. I'm happy for you. So lastly, I don't even know if this is an overreaction. I think we could all agree on this one. This was on the dot, but the Gunslingers are the only team that can go against the Flamethrowers and cause trouble.
I actually will say that it's over the top because I think that the Blues also have a case as we saw the media really disregard the Blues coming into the season. It was definitely interesting to try to think about how the Blues would perform this year without necessarily a true star on their team. But I do think that the versatility between Drew, Neil, and Nate offensively, as well as the effort from Allen, both defensively and rebounding, I think that they will be a difficult team to beat. We also saw that they moved the ball really well. They have good chemistry, and I think that is a team where the number of options that they have and how well-rounded the team is overall, I think they can give the Flamethrowers some trouble. Of course, they were supposed to play against the Flamethrowers in week 2. That game has been moved. Instead, we're going to have the Flamethrowers versus the Ball Hogs in week 2, and then the other game will be the Gravediggers versus the Mean Machine as planned. But to your point, I do think that the Blues could give the Flamethrowers some trouble.
I mean, from week 1 only, I would say that's an accurate statement. But again, I'm a Mean Machine believer, believe it or not. I do think that Jack can get it going. I do think that Flamethrowers might be their only win of the year. But I mean, I do think they can compete well against them. I think they have a chance. They just have to keep it up. Jack just has to shoot better. And if he does, that opens up the floor. I think the Mean Machines can compete. They may have a week 1 loss. But, I mean, the Blues played great and only beat them by 3. So I think that there are other teams out there. So I would say it's a little much for that.
I think to add on to that, or to note this, we talked a lot about right now just the Gunslingers, and then as well as the Blues and Mean Machine and their ability to compete with the Flamethrowers. And once again, kind of disregarding the Ball Hogs a little bit here. The media definitely was known to be disregarding the Ball Hogs last year early on, and the Ball Hogs were right in it with the Gunslingers, and really kind of lost that game due to their own failures late in the game. But the Ball Hogs don't want to necessarily leave them hanging dry here as a team that we know just came off of a championship run.
Yeah, Carson, you read my mind. I was about to mention the Ball Hogs. I think it's now that you mentioned with the schedule change that we just heard, we got a little Keno alert. I I just don't think they win. And starting 0-2 is a big deal in this league. So I think the Ball Hogs, if they have got to circle this game, they got to circle today, because if they lose this game, it's close to hitting the panic button after dropping the first 2. So I'm curious to see how the Ball Hogs play today. I know Chris always has one random team that gives him problems every year. I think last year it was a team led by Neil, and who knows what team it could be this year. But he always has one team that randomly just gives him problems. So, is it the Ball Hogs this year? Is it the Blues? Is it the Gunslingers? I don't know. So, I think that's a big game to see, and it's hard to choose another team other than the Gunslingers to really cause problems for the Flamethrowers right now. To me, I think the Blues aren't ready unless Neil changes his game. But we'll see.
Yeah, and I think to your point, with only playing 6 games each year, starting out 0-2 would be pretty detrimental for the season, especially knowing that first one kind of slipped out of your hands. And the fact that the Flamethrowers, while we do anticipate them being the best team this year, if you're going to catch them in any week, catching them in their first game is probably the best time to do it. Obviously, they have Nate Smith, who is a newcomer to the team, as well as Josh Keena. So they may not quite have the chemistry down yet, and probably a little bit rusty as well, as we saw from most of the teams in week 1. So this is a good time to catch them, and this will be a massive victory for the Ball Hogs, and also, if they're unable to win, a massive loss.
I agree.
Well, that will do it for the SPBL Live Week 1 podcast. Before we go, though, I do want to ask Jacob, as a viewer of the league, what was your opinion on the SPBL and or on the Elam ending being implemented into the SPBL for the first time? We saw 2 very close games, 2 games that came down to the wire, and both had some nice game-winning shots. What was your opinion as a viewer?
As a viewer, I liked it. I do think that the big difference to me was it changed the entire pace of play. the entire game was going on normally. The last 4 minutes, though, everything changed. I mean, everyone was jacking up threes at that point. Not to say they weren't already, but it seemed that it was like everyone just kind of walked the rest of the game. So I do think that's a factor that was the only negative I saw in it was there was a lot of walking back and forth. I do like, though, that it makes teams free throws matter at the end of the game. And it's the in buckets. I mean, they matter. So I do think that, like, as the games we watched as a viewer, it made it better. It made every possession matter, even kind of more. And like the other team wasn't out of it because you can't hold the ball for 45 seconds. So I do think that it made the games themselves significantly better in the end.
Right, and it's interesting, as you noted, the possessions kind of sped up relative to normal with teams not trying to waste clock at the end. However, with those sped up possessions, it was mostly players jacking up threes, which, to your point, then led to some walking back and forth because their own team wasn't even down there yet to get a rebound before they shot it. And so we noted on the broadcast that there was, a sense of urgency, it seems, from the players where when it gets down to the Elam ending time, they just want to hit some threes and put it away, especially when you're 3 points away. Your mindset is immediately to shoot a three to end it, whereas you could just as easily go ahead and get 2 layups and probably do that more efficiently than it took some of these teams to make 1 3. But it will be interesting to see how the strategy evolves over the course of the season. And with that will do it for Week 1 SPBL Live podcast, live reactions. We look forward to calling the games in Week 2. As I mentioned, we have the Flamethrowers versus the defending champion Ball Hogs, who are coming off of a loss to open the season, as well as the Gravediggers versus the Mean Machine. Gravediggers coming off of that come from behind victory. Mean Machine looking to get their first victory. We will be excited to see how it plays out on the floor, and we look forward to joining you again next week for a Week 2 podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and we are signing out SPBL Live.